shock as this unexpected move has left Western leaders scrambling today. It is absolute chaos predominantly in the EU as the US peace plan for Ukraine has thrown all of their projections into absolute turmoil. Chaos is probably a better word. I'm going to get into all of this in today's walk and talk because this is going to be a big one and the news hasn't even caught up with this story yet. So let's get you ahead here. And yes, this is the first walk and talk. I did read the comments on the last video and everyone was saying, I miss these walk and talks, when are you gonna do one? So this is the first walk and talk of the traveling trip here then. So this is so devastating at the moment to the European Union because we found out last week when the sort of unofficial accounts came out that their books are looking bad. I mean, they even tried to get 2 billion out of the United Kingdom just for being part of a defense fund for Europe. I mean, the irony of that statement already. And we do have this 28-point plan for Ukraine that's out now. It's been leaked, wink, wink. Of course, they are always leaked, these plans, aren't they? And I'm not going to go through every single point because there's 28 points plus my commentary on them. But I will go through a few of the key points that I identified here that I think you'll want to know. But if you're one of these people that just can't wait, you can't listen through a whole video to get the full analysis, I'll just give you a quick summary here. What the US has proposed basically cuts out the EU. I mean, cuts it out. And the EU had a lot of plans for these billions of euros, dollars, and all sorts of other currencies basically, but predominantly euros of Russian assets, which are, a lot of them actually are in Belgium. And this is why the Belgian Prime Minister is panicking right now. He's really panicking about what's going to happen to his country, who's been holding all the Russian money for all of this time. So you'll see a lot of stories about him in the coming days. But the reason that people like Ursula von der Leyen and Christine Lagarde, etc., are so angry, and they are angry today, is because this proposal basically cuts them out. And they were relying on this money, and they're saying that they need this money, or this Russian money, because they were going to be using it for EU defense contracts and EU contractors to rebuild Ukraine. Now we're starting to get to a little bit more truth, now that they've admitted what we suspected all along. I'll also tell you what their counter proposal is. So I almost laughed there. It's so weak that I think it's laughable, and I think you'll agree when you hear their counter proposal. It is honestly one of the worst counter proposals I've ever heard in my life. But before we get into all that, it is Black Friday week. Yes, really excited for Black Friday week yet again this year, because this is the biggest sale of the year where I bring you my life-changing, transformational programs that I know you're going to love, predominantly finance and entrepreneurship. They're around financial freedom. So yes, we're doing the 90% off sale again, so check the description and the pinned comment below. And to be honest, just look at the page. You might find it interesting, the different bundles and the different products and everything that are on sale this year. So check that out. It's going to be absolutely awesome. And I'll tell you about it a bit later in the video, because I want to get into these points of this leaked document here. Now, one caveat with these 28 points, I think it's important I mention here, is that, remember, this is a leaked document and these points are still under negotiations, so they could change. What I'm telling you here is probably not going to be the absolute final resolution. But with that said, let me go through them and you'll see why the EU is so angry. Okay, so we'll begin with point number 3 then, because point number 1 and 2 are fairly obvious around the end of the war. So point number 3 says that Russia agrees not to invade any of its neighbors. Okay, seems pretty simple, but the point that the EU are not happy with, they're happy with the first part, but they're not happy with the second part of this, which is that NATO agrees not to expand any further towards Russia, and they're not happy with this. No, we're happy with the first part, but we're not happy with this. Of course you are, of course. All right, what was the next point then? Number 5, Ukraine to receive robust security guarantees. Now, I think this is mainly going to be from the US, from what I'm reading here, because the EU just don't really want to put in the money if they're not going to be getting a lot of benefit, is how it appears from reading all the back and forth here. Point number 6 is a limitation on Ukraine's military to just 600,000 personnel. The EU, again, doesn't think this is reasonable and that it should be a lot larger. But you can drop your comments below. Let me know what you think of that number. Point number 7 here is Ukraine to enshrine in its constitution that it will not join NATO. And NATO commits not to allow Ukraine into its membership. Again, this point is, NATO is not overly happy with this, but let's see how this one plays out. Number 10, a global redevelopment. This is where it gets into the sort of issues, the main concept of the video. A global redevelopment or reconstruction package for Ukraine, including use of the Russian frozen assets, creation of development funds, investment in Ukraine's infrastructure, gas, minerals, natural resources. This will be 100% managed by the United States and not the EU. It says it in black and white. So of course it's now coming out, they had their eye on these minerals and the energy, of course, because what's the EU done? It's cut off all the Russian energy, self-sanctioned itself. Point number 11, phased reintegration of Russia into the global economy, including long-term economic cooperation agreements and return back to the G8 and sanction relief. Of course, Ursula and Lagarde are furious, not just them, all of these EU leaders, they're absolutely furious about this. They are saying absolutely no possible way are they going to be allowed back into the economy and all this stuff. Well, look, the EU is just one group. If other countries want to allow them back in, like the US, Japan, and some of the other big countries, if they want to let Russia back into the economy, then that's their choice to do so, basically. Number 13 then, establishment of a joint security task force implementation body with US, Ukraine, Russia and European participation if they choose to enforce the agreement. Now that just kind of makes me wonder what would be in it for the EU, the European countries, to enforce the agreement if they're not getting anything from it financially. If the US is the one, and Ukraine and Russia that are going to benefit economically from all of this, why would the EU, maybe in case they're concerned that Russia wouldn't hold up to the agreement, right? Maybe something like that. But apart from that, what would really be in their benefit? Point number 15, Ukraine to remain a non-nuclear state. We know that Zelensky is like putting everything into nuclear at the moment. He's saying that this is going to be the sort of deterrent that was going to end the war. Well, he said that a little while back, but I don't think anyone really believed that getting nukes was going to end the war, to be honest. Probably end the war in a different way, in a very bad way. But yeah, I mean, that just didn't make sense against someone like Russia, who's got ridiculous amounts of nukes. Point number 22 then, this is the one that's annoyed Zelensky, and you'll know why in a second. I'm laughing. Ukraine is to hold elections within a defined period after the treaty takes place. It's been reported this should be 100 days. So you can see why Zelensky is not overly happy with this point in there. He would be out eventually. Number 27 then, reconstruction investment to include joint US-Ukraine projects, development of Ukraine's, well, most of their industries. The US is going to work with them and they're going to become a 50-50 business partner. So it says $100 billion of frozen Russian assets should be invested in US-led efforts to rebuild Ukraine. So they would receive 50% right off the bat as the payment, and then they would add some more in their own money. But they said they want Europe to add $100 billion to rebuild Ukraine. So you can imagine in this crisis meeting that's going on right now, they are probably just like pulling their hair out, like, what? We're going to lose all this, and we're going to lose all the defense contracts, and it's not going to boost our economy anymore, and this and that, and now they want $100 billion to end it all and rebuild Ukraine. They're in meltdown. EU is struggling as it is, just drowning in debt, and now this proposal comes forth. Last point then, sanction relief for Russia to be considered throughout. So I think that ties in with the other point that we mentioned there then. And I thought this headline was interesting. It says, US peace plan throws reparations loan for Ukraine into disarray. No wonder this has just come out, this article. In a dramatic reversal for the European Union, the US plan suggests that Russian assets would be unblocked and turned into an investment platform for Washington. Another big win for Washington. And the EU did respond to this, and they basically said no, no, because the plan would go against the EU's goal to make Russia pay for the destruction caused in Ukraine, and that they must pay to restore all the infrastructure, all the buildings and everything. I mean, look, you've got to look at all this and say, is this logical? Is this rational, what they are saying and what they're proposing? And the answer really is no. It's really the EU proposals, and I'll come on to their proposal in a minute, which is, you'll understand, it's just not rational. There's no logic behind it. And if there was, this would have ended a long time ago. So is this new 28-point plan perfect? No, I don't think so. But it's probably about as close as it's going to get. Okay then, are you ready for the EU proposal? Try not to laugh too hard. This is from von der Leyen herself. Okay, here we go. She wrote a 12-page proposal then, 12-page letter, 12-page proposal, and it showed her plan for next year. Nothing to do with ending the war, no, nothing to do with that at all. It said that Ukraine will need enormous military assistance next year and through to 2027. In fact, the next year or two will require as much money as the entire war has cost so far. Oh, look at this guy just taking a little nap here. It is very hot, so I understand it. I could do a little nap myself, it's so hot. Right, so that was the first thing. She estimates that she needs 83 billion for the defense next year, for Ukraine's military, 83 billion, and 55 billion to send to run the economy, right? So that's the other point, 55 billion for the Ukrainian economy. What exactly that means, I don't know. I tried to dig into it, it doesn't even say. So that's basically 135 billion euros next year or the year after. That's crazy. The EU hasn't even got the money. They're overtaxing the citizens as it is. They haven't got that money. And she wants 135 billion euros. Okay, so her two options then were, this is option number one. She wants to send this money to Ukraine, and it would be in non-repayable grants. So that she sends the money and they never have to repay it. So non-repayable grants. That was option one. Obviously, that's a terrible idea. Option two would be the same, but done collectively at the EU level. So it doesn't, again, it's not clear. I was even reading the comments on it. Everyone's like, what does that mean? No one is quite sure what it means. But it does look as though option two means that Ukraine would repay that loan. So that's option two. You know that that's not really going to happen. She then goes on to say, yes, for option two, Ukraine would only be asked to repay the loan once Russia ends its war. That's basically what it's saying. After that, the Commission would repay Euroclear, and Euroclear would repay Russia, completing the circle. So that's basically what she is saying is going to happen. Very complex, long-winded, doesn't really solve the long-term problem. But it kind of finishes with saying that they are going to meet on the 18th to the 19th of December to make a final decision. They said it's a make or break decision at a summit on the 18th, 19th December, where they're going to decide the fate of Ukraine. Well, you're too late at that point. It's over 3 weeks away that they're going to have this emergency summit. 3 weeks time to decide the fate. You're too slow, Ursula. You're way too slow. By the time you decide whatever it is you're going to decide, it's already all over. You'll probably have a peace deal by then or something similar. Oh, hold on, I've got to stop for a second. These fish just came to say hello. Sorry, I haven't got any food for you, but I'll bring some next time. They just caught a fish, look. well, I say caught a fish, they grabbed it and they're eating it. Yeah, this whole thing just annoys me in a way because, you know, I didn't grow up wealthy. Far, far from it. In fact, where I grew up now I think is regarded the third most dangerous city in all of Europe. So when I keep hearing all these leaders talking about all of this money, all these hundreds of billions, it annoys me, and I'm sure it annoys you as well, because it's not their money. These are bureaucrats. None of them are like came into politics wealthy. They didn't. They all come in just like normal people, and then they get wealthy through politics, and they transfer the wealth of the people into the government, and then they get a lot of that money and they do all these shady deals and everything else. So I have no respect for the majority of politicians. You know, my schooling ended at 16 years old. That's when my schooling ended, and that's when I always say that my education then really began, because I had to learn things for myself. I read so many books, attended so many seminars, and of course military. I did the army for 10 years as well. That was a great education, taught me loads of really important life skills that have carried through today. But one of the biggest things I learned, and it's really only in the last few years if you think about it, was about money and not exchanging my time for money anymore. This whole system is a myth. It really is. It's built upon a myth that we have to exchange our time for money, and we have to spend a fortune racking up a fortune in debt at university, which is not even going to be relevant in this economy that we're moving into now, this AI economy where everything changes really quickly. So we've just been sold a lie, and it took me a bit of time to realize that. But once I did, that's why I built all of my digital assets, as it were, and actually taught myself all the systems of money, of financial freedom. And that's a lot of that is what you can find in these programs. So if you haven't looked at the link yet below, check that out. I think you'll really enjoy it. So let me just tell you the promises of each program then. I won't go through them all because there's quite a lot of programs, but I'll just tell you the first three. The promise of the stock market program is that within the first week, you'll learn how to find your first significantly undervalued stock. And this is good because that way you can actually build up a portfolio a lot faster. That's what I've always done, by the way. I've bought significantly undervalued stocks, and then I've just sat on them and waited for them to go up. Hold on, what's this cat doing over here? We've got to see what this cat's up to. Oh, he's chasing something. Oh, it's a lizard. He's caught a lizard. Sorry, I don't want to disturb you there. He's caught a little lizard, look. What is that? Huh? What did you get? And with the wealth psychology course, this for me was the course that really changed everything for me, really did, because I didn't, like I said, I didn't grow up with money. So when I actually started to get money, it was just slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't figure out like why I couldn't hold the money and why at the end of the month I never had any money. So that was a key one. Everyone has got to do, whether it's with my program or on your own, everyone has got to learn about wealth psychology. And again, wealth doesn't have to mean money. It can mean, you know, your health, your family, your time and freedom. But predominantly the program teaches about money. And then the Rapid Cash Flow Builder is, again, an awesome program. It's actually 3 courses in one. It's not just one course. It's 3 courses in one. And that will teach you how to build passive income. Oh gosh, there's so many cats everywhere. I'm just getting distracted by all these cats, and there's some kittens over here. We got one coming over now. Youngster, and then there's another young ginger over there, and then we got a black cat over there. Yeah, just a kitten still, look. Okay, let's get this wrapped up. So yeah, you get a 30-day money back guarantee, or you've got a course swap guarantee. So that means that if you don't like the course that you go for whatever reason, for free I'll swap you onto another course. And if you want to see any testimonials, again, just go to the main page. It's like, I think we've got over 300 testimonials. A lot of them are video testimonials, so you can watch some of those if you need to give yourself some peace of mind. You'll never see a lower price than this. This is the lowest price of the year, and yeah, programs are awesome, so go and check them out. All right, thanks so much for being online. Take care, God bless, see you next time.